Welcome to a very special edition of Senior Bitches, where I usually celebrate the glorious universe of women over 55, but today is a first. I'm having my first male senior bitch. Oh God, he's a good one. We met almost 40 years ago in Toronto, Canada, when we were 14 years of age. I just knew when I first laid eyes on him, there was something magical about him. And I think probably fabulous popped into my head, even though I did not use fabulous on a regular basis. But I just knew that he was impeccably dressed, superior hygiene with this crazy infectious energy and a wicked sense of humor. I was like, I need to be friends with that guy. I was the opposite, almost 5'9", kind of a hot mess. My hygiene was a little sketchy, but I recognized in him a kindred spirit, and immediately our friendship made me feel less alone. We connected at our local country club. I know it's an opus, but I have to do this, where we were relegated to the back courts because we weren't cool enough to be in the front courts. And that is where this friendship started, the quintessential outsiders. Fast forward to 40 years later, where we connected via social media a few years ago, and he took me to dinner at Craig's in LA, which is such a Hollywood hotspot, where he held court at the primo table. And by the way, it was a master class in navigating big fat personalities. I actually took notes. So I slid into that luxurious banquet, and we did not skip a beat for 5 or 6 hours, laughing and reminiscing about the intersections in our past and present lives. So I am so thrilled to have him on Senior Bitches today. He's a proud dad of 2 boys. He's happily married. I want to get some tips on that one. He runs a global entertainment company, Rocket Entertainment. He does the most inspiring work on one of the globe's most challenging health crises through the Elton John AIDS Foundation, and is actually changing the trajectory of health and culture. He's lovely to look at, and he still smells divine. And those are just a few reasons why he's my first senior bitch dude. And I'm calling this episode Elevate and Celebrate. So please welcome live from the UK, the fabulous David Furnish.
Thank you so much, MJ. It is an honor to be your first male senior bitch.
How's it going, eh?
It's going really good, thanks. Hey, how's it going for you?
Oh, it's going super great, eh? Thanks for asking.
Nice.
It's just wonderful. Yeah, I'm in California and you're in the UK. And
Yes.
for people who are just listening, you're in your dining room in Windsor, and there's this beautiful peach background, and you're glowing.
Thank you.
You are absolutely glowing. So
you bring out the inner glow in me.
Do I?
Yes.
I
wasn't glowing before I got on this call.
You're super glowing right now. When we meet, we always default back into our childhood. When we run into each other, we ran into each other a few weeks ago on the street. And the bond we have at 14 years of age as being outsiders. And we remember every single nuance, right? So when we talk about our childhood, we remember first and last names, right?
Yeah.
Like we go into major detail about this whole thing. So I want to ask you, what did we recognize in each other? And by the way, I want to show you, I remember my childhood phone number, 416-962-1643. That's how much detail I remember. But what was the connection? I just was so drawn to you when we were younger.
Well, I just like to say 416-499-0345.
I knew it.
I also have the same
I knew
detail. I loved your rebellious spirit. Because the tennis club was a bit of a conformist kind of place, a bit of airs and graces. And I remember you being refreshingly honest and so bloody funny. You had the most amazing sense of humor. And we just endlessly laughed and sent things up all the time. You were self-deprecating. You had a wicked forehand. And you know, you looked really fabulous in like those little short white tennis dresses that all the ladies used to wear with the frilly knickers underneath them.
I did.
The panties with the little frilly things. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
They looked great on you.
Well, thank you. On you too. Well, yeah. And it was just funny, like your energy. I just knew that we were both just a little left of center. Like we were both outside of that really conservative, oppressive environment.
And it was a bit hierarchical.
Yeah.
And there were kids who came from, you know, more prominent families or whose parents, you know, took the tennis pro on lavish holidays or, you know, drinking rounds at the pub. and there was very much the in kids, the favorite kids, the richer kids, the better tennis players, and you and I just didn't fit into any of that. And didn't really want to fit into it. Like, it was not like we felt like we were missing out. You and I just used to kind of stand back and be like, look at them.
Yeah,
That's
that's weird.
just not who we were.
Yeah. Even then at 14. And, you know, you were like, honestly, when I ran into you on Rodeo Drive, I just want to drop that. I said hi and you went, you know, I was relegated to the back courts when we were at Bayview Country Club. Like, you launched right into it.
And I still carry such trauma. And my sons are learning tennis now. They're 10 and 12, and they're magnificent players. And I still have this wonky forehand grip that no one ever took the time to correct for me. And it was a bad habit that is unfortunately still with me at the age of 60. And I want to go out and have a nice friendly game of tennis with my kids. And unfortunately, I can only hit like a really powerful topspin forehand because of my grip is so far over. So my poor sons are like back on the baseline, and I'm just no fun to play with. They're like, Papa, we're not going to play with you anymore because you can't hit the ball properly.
Oh my God, talk about childhood trauma.
It's heartbreaking. So yes, I do still carry it with me. And it was prejudice, and it was, you know, elitism at its finest. You know, this was like, oh, you can go over on court 6 with the bucket of balls with the other kids and, you know, play doubles or something.
Yeah, they didn't care about us.
Nothing. No.
And the funny thing too is that you were relegated to the backcourt, and I remember that Bayview Country Club had this big tennis tournament, and I auditioned for ball girl. And because I was fast, I got to be the net ball girl, which is the primo spot, David. I don't know if you knew that.
You were quite tall. Like, I remember you had really very long, shapely legs. You were very statuesque, I think, amongst all the other girls in the Bayview tennis section.
I was big. I was big, David. I was big.
No, you weren't. You had curly brown hair. You were a flower that had not opened and bloomed yet. You had your hair, curly brown hair, and you had it pulled back into a ponytail, and you didn't wear any makeup. But you were, again, I mean, I just felt so safe with you. I think that also that thing where, you know, when you're a burgeoning gay man and you're sort of in the closet and you have these feelings and you know you're different from everyone else and you haven't quite figured it out, but you don't feel comfortable and safe with everybody. I really did feel completely comfortable and safe with you, because I don't know, we just connected. It was just so funny, and I'm sure you're going to come on to how we ultimately rebelled. But that in itself was like, you know, break the mold, break some rules,
screw everybody,
shake this stuffy country club up.
Yeah, and shove it somewhere. But the thing that I was going to say about the ball girl thing, so I get the ball girl thing and I'm at the net and I'm like, finally, the guys are going to notice me. And the tennis pros were over in the corner with some of the hotter guys, and they walked over and this is what they said to me. You can't be net ball girl. And I'm like, why? And they said, you're not pretty enough. You're just not pretty enough.
What?
Yes. And then I got relegated to the backcourt, probably where you were. And I remember thinking at that moment, I didn't know that I wasn't pretty enough. In my mind, I always thought when I looked in the mirror and had a brush and I was singing that somebody would see beauty. But that screwed me up so badly. And I was like, oh, I'm not pretty enough. So even though I've got skill, I'm not pretty enough to, and that was kind of the feeling I think we both got there. You're just not quite good enough, right?
Yeah.
It was traumatic.
That upsets me to hear that, and horribly offensive that someone would actually say that to, you know, a beautiful young girl. It's just,
I think I just went to find you.
No.
Yeah, dreadful. So I think I went to find you to go have a hamburger with me or something and drown my sorrows. Probably a cheeseburger.
I know you're asking the questions, but you had a younger sister who was a little bit more kind of
cheerleader at that age.
Yeah, a little bit more closer to the cool group than you and I were. She was a bit of a what's the word? Fireball, I guess would be the word I was looking for. You and I were a bit more like, you know.
Yeah. Let's go have a cheeseburger and deal with this shit. We're gonna go eat.
Grilled cheese and bacon.
And a champion. It was all part of it, right? Because life to a certain extent is high school, and
Yeah.
that's what it was like high school, and just being this outsider and always being constantly reminded, oh, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough. And I'm glad that's in the past. That was definitely a period of my life, but boy, did it set a template moving forward of how I was informed about me. Yeah. And so my question to you, because I'm doing the interview, my
I know.
friend, is
I'll
that
stop. I'll
no,
stop
no,
asking
you can
questions.
ask me anything. I love your mind. So and you kind of answered that. Do you carry that 14-year-old boy around with you? You
Yes.
must. And what is your relationship like with that person?
Um, I have it took me a lot of, a lot, many years and a lot of therapy, to get me to like that 14-year-old person.
Oh,
It took me a long time, because I did have a feeling that, I just wasn't cool enough or athletic enough or, um, rich enough or, all the parameters in which people were judged and measured, in when you're when you're 14 and 15. But I just kept trying to make my own. If I couldn't succeed in one thing, I would put my energies into something else. Like if I wasn't going to be given, if I wasn't going to be appreciated, or given opportunities in one part of my life, I found another place to direct my energies and to get, that thing and that response. And I think that's one of the key things that drove you and I together. And I also think it's the things that drove my 14, 15-year-old entrepreneurialism, in that I just, within this environment, I just decided I'm not getting accepted here. I'm going to go over here, and make my mark somewhere else. Um,
which leads me to the fact that this was a big move, all our listeners, that he did at 15 or 16. He started to run
15.
15. He started to run the pool snack bar.
Yeah.
Okay. David ran the pool snack bar. And
No, I didn't run it. There wasn't a pool snack bar. So
did you create it?
yes. And I can't believe,
Oh,
I look back now and I think, the stuff we were talking about where I didn't feel adequate enough. But I remember with my friend Chris, we went around the club with a petition and said, would you like a pool snack bar? I went around to four
oh my
unsuspecting
God.
parents and shoved this clipboard into their hands. And we got so many signatures on this petition that we presented it to the board of directors of the club and said, your members want a pool snack bar. And they were like, really? We said, yes, look at all these signatures. And, then we said, and we're the perfect people to run it for you. And I look back on that now and I can't believe I had that confidence. Like I really, because I so didn't feel like I fit in the tennis world. Yet, we did it for a couple of summers, and it warms my heart to this day. My brothers still go to the Bayview Country Club, and I always poke my head nostalgically through the window at the poolside area, and it's like this big permanent thing now. Like we had a secondhand cooler in the back of the lifeguard's office with like half melted ice creams in it, and then we ran up and down the stairs with these plastic, rubber lined trays, bringing up drinks and food on paper plates. Now it's this like barbecue and buffet and hot and cold running cappuccino, and it's turned into this empire
At the club.
at the club. And I think
Yeah.
I look back now and I think, wow, it all started with me at 15.
I know. And you ran it. I sort of look at it as a precursor to Rocket Entertainment. That's what I look at it at. And you ran a tight ship. I remember you with your little tray, and it was so hot. There was no coverage. And I used to see you interact with those ladies who were wasted midday, by the way. And you were
Oh
super cute. So
yes.
I can imagine the atrocities that happened to you at the pool snack bar.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, I look back on it now. There was a lot of, I mean, I could me too a lot of those people that were by that pool after too many, um, gin and frescas in the sun. I got my
And tabs too.
and
Tabs
tabs,
too.
rum and tab, or gin and fresca. I got my bum pinched a lot. I got hands rubbed up and down my legs into the bottom of my shorts.
I remember
Um,
your white shorts, by the way.
yeah, and it was so inappropriate.
Yeah.
I remember one of the poolside ladies gave me this nickname, Peaches. And I said, why
Oh
are you calling me
God.
Peaches? She said, because you have an ass that's like two perfectly round firmed peaches. And at that
Mm.
point, I was the least sexualized person in the world. I didn't think of myself in a sexual way at all whatsoever. And this desperate housewife was clearly, fantasizing in a way
About your fruit.
about
Ugh.
my fruit. And I was just like, and to be honest with you, a lot of it just went
Yeah.
right over my head, because I just wasn't in a position to even remotely think of myself like that. I also had
Go.
very hairy legs. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember your hairy legs so much, and we
Yeah.
always argue about the length of your socks. I think you wore knee highs, but you said you did not.
No, I wore the standard tube sock that sort of goes just over the ankle bone, maybe a little bit higher. I didn't
Yeah.
wear the little no-show socks. You wore the no-show socks with the white pom-pom on the back of them that came out of the back of your tree-torn sneaker.
I did, with
remember that.
multicolored pom-poms. I had
Yeah,
multicolors, not
I
just
remember I remember that extremely well. But yeah, I was that part of me developed early, and I'm very happy with my legs now, but I hadn't quite grown into them at 15. So
You seem like a man. You seem like a man at that point to me. Very mature.
I was unbelievably self-conscious about having to. That was the only downside to the poolside snack service, was I had to walk around and bare my legs.
And I don't think you ever
in Bermudas.
tanned. You were not a big tanner. No.
No, I'm half Irish. I don't tan.
Yeah,
No,
I remember that.
I go pink. I go pink and then red.
I have such a visual of you running around in your crisp shorts, kind of frantically, navigating like the whole pool snack bar. And I was so impressed. And I think plus you tossed me some free stuff. I think you might have along the way. I might have got a few ice cream sandwiches and stuff from the cooler, from the melting cooler. I think you gave me stuff. Okay, I have one word for you. Get ready. And I'm going to leave this to you. One word. Bambi.
Am I allowed to say her surname?
Yeah, go, of course.
Okay. Bambi Linden.
Because we always do first and last names. Okay,
Yeah,
go.
Linden. Well, in those days, it was Mrs. Linden. I mean, you didn't call anybody's parents by their first name. I'm kind of shocked the way the world has deteriorated, because you didn't dare. Your mother was Mrs. Eustace, your father was Mr. Eustace, my parents were Mr. and Mrs. Furnish. No, Bambi Linden was this spectacularly glamorous woman. I'd never seen anybody like her like that in my life. And she was I had a sort of girlfriend, and I say that in inverted commas, with a lovely girl called Lisa, and Bambi was Lisa's mother. And I used to go around to Lisa's house, and it was so unbelievably glamorous, with a leopard skin tablecloth and a bronze sculpture of Michelangelo's David coming right up through the middle of the coffee table where the television was. So we used to have to watch the TV between David's legs.
Love that.
Wanted to see the screen. And Bambi was the most curvaceous woman I had ever seen in my life. She was absolutely, she just rocked a bikini like nobody I ever knew in my life. And she went to
the corner store in a bikini and pumps. Remember, at night?
Yes.
She'd go to Becker's in her bikini to buy milk.
And come out with a jug of 2%.
Yeah.
Remember those plastic jugs with the red handles? The plastic one? She'd come out with a jug of 2%, sling it into the Cadillac Seville.
Oh,
and then we would drive back to Steel Valley Road, listening to the soundtrack from Grease, because that was the summer of Grease.
Yeah.
And we sing along to Summer Loving and
Had me a blast.
Yes. And Bambi knew the words to every song. And she had like a beautiful, luxuriant head of tight curls. It was almost an afro.
Semi-afro, a bit Elizabeth Taylor, like from the 50s, like that sort of hairdo.
Okay, it was very Elizabeth Taylor. There's a film with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton called The VIPs. If you watch Elizabeth Taylor and The VIPs, that is Bambi Linden, without question. Yeah. She was like so exotic, wasn't she? I heard before the Canadian Prime Minister married the infamous Margaret Trudeau, when he was a bachelor prime minister, that Bambi was the hostess at his parties. She used to come in with a tray, in heels, and look
Yeah.
after all the VIP guests. So I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
that's amazing pedigree.
she has amazing pedigree. And I just want a few things about Bambi, just jumping ahead. Bambi got like a PhD in psychology. She's still alive. She's brilliant. She was a brainiac, or her husband was a brainiac too. But so I have a grand love for Bambi, and had a totally impressive career on both sides of the marriage. But do you remember the platters? Because she used to put the platters out, and we didn't get salmonella, but she would put the platters out for 24/7, and like they'd have like little toothpicks with umbrellas, and like she'd put out shrimp, like salami. Remember, like it was 24/7 platters. Wherever you went, you could have a platter. Do you
Yes,
remember that?
I
Wasn't
do
it the
remember that.
best?
I love the little umbrellas.
Wasn't that the best? But I mean,
And I remember when she came out, I'd never seen a heated hostess trolley before. And she came out with this giant Pyrex dish of chicken Diablo. Well, I mean,
that was her favorite. That was her favorite.
I was a boy from Scarborough. I had never tasted anything as exotic as chicken Diablo in my life. And Bambi's chicken Diablo is just like to die for. And then they were horrified. They were horrified because I had milk with my meal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because they were the Jewish faith, and wonderfully kind and welcoming. And I was a waspy kid who had milk with my meals, and they were like, "How can you have milk with meat?" And I was like, "I've done it all my whole life. What's wrong?"
I did the same thing. And I used to be over there every weekend with the shag carpeting and the leopard skin and the platters. And I would go home and everything would seem so gray after Bambi's.
I know. It was exotic. And do you remember they had the sculptures of the peeing boys on either side of the
peeing statues? Yeah. And we would swim through it
by the diving board. So you had to like do it like 1.5 through the two boys peeing to deep end.
I think seeing that was really beneficial for us, because I think in our mind we landlocked like, oh yeah, we can do that. At some point we can be like that, which is totally cool.
I had never seen anything so glamorous and exotic in my life. Like it really was for me a major cultural high point. And set the bar of aspirations, into the galaxy. So
we thank Bambi and send her lots of love. And
yes, lots of love, Bambi.
We love Bambi. She's still kicking, still super hot. And where's that red lipstick?
I hope you're listening, Bambi.
Oh, I'll send it to her and Wendy. So with all these great characters, we actually wanted to write like a series about the Bayview Country Club. But can you talk about, we should actually do it. We actually entered the male doubles.
Boys doubles, boys under 16 doubles.
Boys, and David, tell us what happened.
Okay, so at that point in time, and this was in the era of, Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs, Battle of the Sexes, when, women were really relegated to the pat ball interpretation of tennis, as opposed to being terrific tennis players. You and I, the trailblazers, I didn't just stop at the snack bar. We went to the tennis office, and we went to the tennis head, and we said there should be junior mixed doubles, where you and I loved playing tennis together, and we actually were really well matched, because you had a fantastic forehand and I had a fantastic two-handed backhand. Yeah. And your forehand made up for my spazzy forehand. I don't think I'm allowed to say that anymore. Anyway.
Shaky.
To use
bad. Let's just say bad. Let's just say it's a bad forehand.
I apologize. That wasn't very PC. And we said, you should have mixed doubles. And they were like, no, there's no junior mixed doubles. There were senior mixed doubles. I don't know. Did they think we were going to be, feeling each other up at the baseline? I have no idea, but
I wish that had happened. I would have taken it. I would have gladly taken it.
It was forbidden. It was forbidden. And you and I said, fuck it. We're going to enter the boys doubles.
Yes.
And we did.
Yes, we did.
And you give the result.
I think we might have won. I'm sort of thinking we might have won the whole damn thing. I'm thinking that we took it home.
I remember, well, we raised a lot of eyebrows.
Yes,
there were a lot of eyebrows raised.
Yes.
And I also remember that the next year after that, they introduced junior mixed doubles.
Yeah.
Because you and I showed him how it was done.
We were trailblazers. And did
Total
anybody
trailblazers.
appreciate us? Did anybody ever appreciate us then? Or were
Not
we just
really.
like a big pain in the ass?
I don't think anyone took us seriously, but we were just getting on with it and doing our trailblazing thing. You know, that's what trailblazers.
Oh, I love it. And just, it was just this magical little world that we created where it was just, and to this day, it resonates with me so much. And it's over 40 years ago. You know, it was just so powerful and so comforting having that friendship.
They were great summers. They were really,
Yeah.
really great summers. And we were lucky we lived a really great life. And oh my God, the food, like,
I know. It was the best. We got cut off because we went over on our bill. So we got relegated to Melba toast and butter and water
because Melba
for like
toast
a
was
couple of
free.
weeks. It was free in the butter. And I used to eat the butter, like just chomp it down. But I used to do 3 meals a day there. Like I do cheeseburgers, fries, ice cream, and still be hungry. I never even thought about it.
So to listeners out there, the club had a signing system. There was no cash. It was a cash-free environment. Your parents had an account. My parents was F680. I remember that too. And
E600.
Yeah. And all you had to do was order what you want. You wrote it down yourself. It was called a chit. You wrote your order on the chit. You held your chit up in the air, and then somebody would come along and go, "Hello, Mr. Furnish. I'll take your chit." And you'd get your cheeseburger, your fries, your chocolate milkshake, your whatever. And then you had this like completely unrealistic version of like a cash-free world where everything didn't really cost anything. And then your parents would get this bundle every month where all of the chits.
They did the chits, right? You got the chits
in a
rubber band
computer printout thing in a rubber band. And I remember my brother and I would like wait at the front door because we knew when the baby bill was coming, and you'd wait for the mail slot in the door, and we could tell by the thud when it hit the floor, like, oh,
you're screwed. You're screwed. Well,
and
when families,
like, boom.
When families didn't pay the bill, they'd get posted. We never got posted, but we got cut off. Like we were like, forget it, you guys. Like we would eat Melba toast. We'd have one meal, but I don't want to say the families got posted, but you got humiliated if you didn't pay your bill. It was posted on the wall.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I also remember by the tennis court, there was a sign, a big giant sign that said whites only.
Oh my God.
Do you remember that?
For our tennis
courts.
Yeah. But still in my head. Yeah.
I know. That's what a completely different world it was. And I remember, and I won't name this person, I remember the one male member of the men's tennis community who shocked the club. I mean, it was like the scandal of the decade, who turned up in a pink tennis shirt with white shorts. And people were literally scandalized.
Apoplectic.
I mean, not only is he breaking the whites only rule, he was wearing pink.
I know. And we know there's a whole story behind that we can't do because we'll get libeled. But we know there's a fantastic story behind the pink shirt.
We discussed it over dinner at Craig's, so we're completely on the same.
For 6 hours, we were obsessed with it. We talked about it. So always a trailblazer, always a connection with us. So I'm going to fast forward to that dinner that we had at Craig's in LA a couple of years ago. And it did not feel like 40 years had passed. No. And it was really sweet because we're in the banquet laughing our asses off. And oh my God, our sense of humor is so twisted. And your husband called, and he was doing his Las Vegas residency. And it was really cute because he went, I'd like you to meet Mary Jo. You know, I'm having dinner, and Elton, please meet Mary Jo. And it was so sweet. And he was like, just had stepped off on stage. And it was such a proud moment for both of us because I got to meet your husband and, you know, this incredible relationship and partnership you have. And it was just so sweet. It was so sweet.
Then you came to Vegas when we were ending the run at Caesars, and we had a big dinner for everybody in the Chinese restaurant. And you came and you brought your daughter.
Which
really lovely. And
it was so lovely.
Nice. Elton got to meet you in person because he heard me talk about all the crazy fun things that you and I did. And he's like, I really want to meet her because she sounds like a riot.
He was adorable. And so it was, I think, his last show. So there was 5 of us at the table. I think Tony was there, your set guy. And he said to me, I want to talk politics with you. David's told me that'll be fun. And so we sat down at this table, and I think it was like Mr. Chow's. And so you and Lola, because Lola's a buffet person, she hit the trail right away to go get food, and you got up to go get food. So I was left alone with your husband, Elton, who was so charming and lovely because you know, it was just, he just let me off the hook. He was so lovely to speak to and just launched into all sorts of cool things. And this was like, one of my questions for you. You came back from the buffet, which was adorable, and you had loaded up all the stuff that he loves, and you put
Mhm.
it down in front of him and you went, love, here you go. Here you go, sweetie. You know, and you were so tender and nurturing with him and authentic. And it was so profound for me because obviously you've been in a relationship with him for many, many years. And it was so loving and so sweet. So that type of nurturing partnership, like, did that come with age with him? Because it was so authentic and so nurturing. That's the only word I can think of it.
Oh,
But I'm
um,
wondering, how do you have a nurturing, mature relationship? This I'm taking notes for. Okay, I'm here on
um,
this one.
um, well, I think I'm lucky because I came from a nurturing home.
Yeah,
So I saw the joy and the comfort that my parents gave to each other because they had a very nurturing relationship. Um, I don't know. Elton breaks my heart. He breaks my heart. He has such a kind soul, and um, he has a lot on his plate, but he loves what he does. But he came from a really, really toxic, broken home, and he unquestionably carries trauma from that experience. And it explains his anger from time to time when he's overtired and when he feels threatened. The 6-year-old boy locked in the room in his house as the only child when his parents were fighting nonstop, and it was quite violent. Um, his vulnerability always breaks my heart, and uh, I just love when I can do things for him, not in a codependent or a kind of servile way. It's just genuine love and mutual respect. Um, I think one of the things that's always allowed our relationship to do well and flourish is the fact that when we come together, we really come together, but we also give each other room to respect each other's independence. So we don't live in each other's pockets. And a lot of times in my relationship in those days, Elton was on the road and I was back
right.
in the UK. And so we were apart. So when we were together, we always both made an effort to really make the most of it. But then also, I'm so grateful, and Elton had to learn this lesson, being who he is in early relationships. He would just take people on the road with him, and he would take away their identity, and he would take away who they were. And he never asked me to do that. He knew that was a dead end street, and you touched on it from my 14, 15-year-old days. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I love working, and I take great pride in what I do. And I had a successful career before I met Elton, and it would have been wrong for him to change me, to like fundamentally say, hey, you don't need to work, come on the road with me. And it would have taken my soul. And so I'm grateful for that. And I guess he's at Caesars and he's done a big show and he's worked very, very hard, and we're at this big celebratory moment where he's closing off a big run and thanking
Yeah.
his crew and his band. It's like, of course I'm going to bring him his food. Like, I'm I love him.
Well,
and
it was.
I enjoy doing it, and it's so sweet that you observe that, because it's just something that brings us both great joy. And
It's so loving.
he does it to me too.
Yeah.
He's also very nurturing. I want to point out, so you were sitting with Tony.
Yeah.
That's Tony King. Now,
Okay.
Tony King, because you clearly remember him, he's a very, very special man. He has just written his memoirs, and it's a
Oh,
wonderful book called The Tastemaker. And Tony, through his entire life, has worked for the following people: the
name them.
Beatles.
They're good. Yeah.
Okay, the Beatles,
Yeah.
Elton, John Lennon as a solo artist, and then the Rolling Stones, and then came back to work with us. And
Yeah.
Tony started as a gay man in the music business in Britain in the 60s, and has lived the most extraordinary life, of joy and loss and sorrow. And his memoirs are wonderful. He's a brilliant raconteur, Tony. I hope you got some good stories out of him, because he's so great. And this
He
book, so
was
it's
lovely.
called The Tastemaker. It's Tony King. Um, he's in his 80s now, and he's so proud of it. And it was a big moment for him to, he for years said, I'm never writing a book, I'm taking my secrets to the grave. And it's not one of those dishy mean books. It's actually really beautiful anecdotes that give you an insight into that very, very special world, and the best part of it. Because he has some crazy stories, and he says, look, people trusted me and took me into their confidence, so I'm not going to spill those stories. But the things he does reveal are really, really beautiful.
He was an incredible dinner companion and so fascinating. But, you and I talk our politics, and, we have strong opinions and lots of energy around that. And he came up to me and he said, oh, David told me about you. You're going to, sit beside me. So there was only 5 of us at the table, but he was incredible to talk to. And it was just a magical evening. And another thing I noticed too, that you and Elton were so beautiful to Lola. You were so engaged with her and talking to her. And it was like, oh my God, I could do this every night. I could hang around these guys every night.
Listen, I was so excited and happy to meet your daughter. You've spoken so fondly about her. I haven't met your son yet. And that's something that, I mean, post-pandemic, and when the tour finally ends, and we're spending more time, off the road, I would love to meet him in LA, and I'd love you to meet my boys too.
I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. And, to circle back to our initial point, talking about the nurturing and connection. I remember one evening speaking to you, were talking to me a bit about Elton's past and his family and everything. And the look on your face and the compassion you had for him was what you said. My heart breaks for him. There was such love there. So I love seeing it. I love being around that.
Yeah. And it's about empathy. Like, relationships don't succeed without empathy. And we seem to live in a world now where there seems to be a lot of galloping narcissism happening in certain people. It's certainly happening with certain politicians. But, it's really important in a relationship. Of course, you have to put your needs first. You always have to do that. But, bringing empathy to a relationship and thinking about things from your partner's perspective in terms of, well, what have they just been dealing with, or how much sleep have they had, or what's going on with them. If you just apply that, in times where you sail into, choppier waters, which you have to in every relationship, you have to have conflict, you have to have disagreement. But, it's just an awareness and an empathy for thinking, how is this going to land with them, in general, and where they are at that particular moment. I remember my mom said to me, because my parents had a really great marriage, and I said to her, what's your secret to success? And she said, you can say 1,000,000 nice things to somebody. And she said, but you say one nasty thing. And she said, that's the one thing they remember. And you can't take it back once you've said it. And she said, I'm not advocating for not saying difficult things, but she said, before I say something difficult, I think long and hard before I say it, because I can never take it back. You have to say those things in a relationship. You have to drive into conflict if you want to get things resolved. But sometimes people just, when we're tired and we're not at our best, they just kind of let loose, and it sticks, and you can never take it back.
I know it's hard, and you have to do it all with vulnerability on both sides. And if you're vulnerable, you're open, and that's a whole other discussion, the importance of vulnerability. And being able to do that from both perspectives. I'm taking notes because I've started to kind of date somebody a little bit, but that's a whole other thing. But I am taking notes.
I want to hear about that.
I'm sort of taking notes. So back to, I could talk to you for 9 days. So back to the aging thing. So you moved to London, and as you said, you were the youngest account executive at your advertising firm. Literally, you've been running the world probably since you were 3. So you get into this relationship with a very public figure, and you're young and super hot, and you still are. And I wonder about that. What was that like for you to age in the public eye? Like, we get to do it in private. That was, that must have been quite an indoctrination.
Yeah, it's been easier with Elton because he leaves Elton on stage. So he doesn't bring celebrity home. We don't revere celebrity in our household or in our family. We're too interested. We're just too interested in other things. We're too interested in music and film and art and culture and photography and, ending AIDS and all those kinds of things are just so much more interesting to us. I don't think about being in the public light. I don't really think of myself as a public figure. I know that's not strictly the case, but I certainly have a lot of profile because of my relationship with Elton. I remember some very good advice a friend gave me very early on in the relationship, because he knew I had bitten off a very, very big piece of cake in this relationship. And he said, his nickname for me is Princey, because he says I'm the prince. I have the luckiest life in the world. And he says, Princey, he said, here's the reality. He said, the people that know you the least will judge you the most.
Of course.
And those are really, really true words. And there are always going to be, when you're in the public eye, there's always going to be people, unfortunately, that don't know you very well at all and want to think the nasty stuff. I bet he's an asshole. I bet he's self-centered. I bet he's mean. I bet he's spoiled. I bet it's like, you just have to, you can't do anything about that. And you could drive yourself crazy worrying and thinking about it. And there's just no point. You just have to know where it's important that you're your most authentic self in your life with those people, and their feedback and their opinions are the ones that matter the most. You just can't think about all that other stuff. And I have such a benign presence on social media, but I don't know how some of these people, these influencers, reveal so much personal stuff and live their lives, through social media, and share it with millions and millions of people, and the mostly negative crap that comes back. I don't get it.
No, I don't get it at all. And I mean, like,
No.
I've had a bit of a spell with, my D list, well, maybe F list, well, maybe G list celebrity sort of interaction. And over the course of 2 decades, like, I've been, tabloids or whatever. And, I always kind of made jokes about it. I was like, oh, they said this or they said that. And then it's only recently, right, because of the public nature of, like, getting put in these situations, that I was like, it really sucks. Like, I don't like it. It's not healthy. It's like your life. It's exactly what you said, like how people perceive you to be. The people who know you the last perceive you to be this way. And of course, there's no connection with that. And for a little bit, it's disorienting because something's being projected that's so not you. And it's not even worth fixing it or saying anything about it, but it does kind of psychologically take a bit to balance it, right? Because it's an onslaught.
Yeah. I mean, the advice I give everybody, my husband included, is, for God's sakes, don't read the comments. Like, whatever you do, but not just on social media, but like in the newspaper, like the stuff that people write and the comments that they leave behind, on any story, you go down and you read it, and it's like, oh my God, these people are vile and mean.
They are vile,
and hateful. And so, like, they don't know you and they just want to think the worst all the time. And it's like, do not seek sustenance there. The minute you start letting that, rule your life, you're never gonna, you're going down a slope you're never gonna come back from.
Well, what's really interesting? Do you ever listen to Strombo out of Canada? George Strombo. He's a really interesting guy. I interviewed him. He was on the New Music. He's doing really cool stuff.
I thought I was the first man on Senior.
No. This was years ago. I interviewed him for something else. Are you kidding me? You are my first I didn't sleep last night. I was so excited. I was up going to the bathroom 97 times. I had like 8 coffees this morning. I was on this. But he told me, which is really interesting from a psychological perspective, that, our brains are actually not activated to take in this much hate, that social media, that we're not built to take in that much negativity. Like, it actually fucks us up. It screws us up, like, because we can't even process how can this be coming at me? Because it's so random anyway. But, social media does set that up, because you've got the buffer, right? Like, you can just be as heinous as you want to be and nobody can trace it back to you.
Of course. And, not surprisingly, particularly young women who are so objectified on social media, like the emphasis on all of the wrong things, your skin, your hair, your body, your clothes, your, whatever. Depression is at an all-time high.
As a suicide for young
because
girls.
These girls are put under such a toxic microscope. It's really unfair, and it's also a big problem in the celebrity world, because they don't do that to men. They don't talk about men on a red carpet the way they talk about women. And I honestly don't know how some of these people have the courage to like get dressed and get out the door and like be exposed to that, because it is just so unhealthy and so mean. And I don't know why we do it at all, particularly to women. It just makes no sense to me.
I think it's a perfect platform. I mean, the social media platform is so toxic in so many ways. So it's like set up that way because it's so visual and so judgmental. And like you can literally sit in your basement and rip people apart. I mean, so, you know, and not engage. You don't even have to engage. You're just spewing all this stuff. So I don't even enjoy even watching red carpets anymore because I don't even like the energy of it is so bizarre because everybody is so, you know, primed up and trying to look perfect and be perfect. Like the individuality is kind of, mind you, there are some really cool things coming up. I have to admit, I love some of these people that are coming up that just have a totally different, you know, perspective and don't really seem to care about the commentary. Like I do love that confidence.
It's because I think, unfortunately, because of the negative scrutiny, it's become really safe and really banal. And now
like prom queens, they're like prom queens, the women.
Yeah,
a lot of hairspray.
But also you don't dare walk down a red carpet without somebody who's like completely vetted you, checked you over. I had the funniest thing. I went to the LACMA benefit and I pulled up in the car and Kim Kardashian was waiting by the side of the road, and I jumped out and said, "Hey, how's it going?" She said, "Oh, I'm waiting for my sister." And Kylie Jenner got out, and I watched them walk from the car to the red carpet, like to the photo pit area. And they had 3 people following them, fixing their hair, touching their makeup up, and adjusting their dresses as they were walking from their car, just to get them to stand on that little mark where you get your photo taken. And I was like, oh my God, who would want to live like that?
That's death.
It's just like, you know, look in front of the mirror before you leave the house. Yeah, look great. Jump in the car, and that should be it. But it's just this whole kind of insane. And I know it's their business, and I know it's worth a lot of money to them.
But there's so many, it's fraught with so many things too, though. It's fraught with all sorts of bad things because you see these people literally have like a light and a camera crew and like 4 bodyguards and stylists walking around them. And then they put this image on social media and people are like, what? I could never achieve that. Like, it's just, there's no humanity in it. There's nothing fun about it.
It presents an ideal that is unachievable to the average person. And I think it ultimately makes so many people feel less than. I mean, a bit like it's court 6.
It's court 6.
It's court 6.
And I'm not pretty enough to be a ball girl. Fuck all of you. I'll show you a ball girl. I'll show you what I can do.
And mixed doubles, get out of the office.
Get out of the office. So the other thing too, I wanted to ask you, I briefly dated a billionaire years ago. And we went on his yacht and did this whole thing. It was super fun. But I remember going on the private plane, and he's Canadian. And he took my hands and he was like, "I'm so excited." And I said, "Well, I'm excited too." And he said, "You know what? This never gets old. I'm a kid from, I don't know, Kelowna, BC. And every time I step on the private plane, I'm like, this is like lifestyles of the rich and famous. And there's not one day that goes by that I don't look around and go, wow." And I'm wondering, do you have those moments? Are you ever like, oh,
always?
Yeah.
I call them pinch me moments.
Yeah.
Where I just sort of sit and I think, I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe I never take it for granted. And I never want to get blasé about any of it. Because I could never have imagined in a trillion years when I was on court 6 that
running the snack bar,
that my life, could turn out the way that it has. And it is the stuff of, fairy tales or fantasy films or whatever. But, also at the same time, it's also, most importantly, it's our home. It's our safe haven. It's a wonderful, beautiful place to raise our kids. We have, and there's nothing better than opening it up to share with your friends and people that you love. And
when should I come? Like, just give me like a window. I don't know what month is good.
You book the flight. I'll have a bedroom upstairs. You can come in.
I can be there next Monday. It's just, I don't want to be pushy. So I'm Canadian. I don't want to be pushy, but is there an
No,
ensuite bathroom with my room? I need to know that.
you have to say sorry 3 times before you have to say, like, I'm really
Sorry.
sorry. I'm
Sorry.
sorry, but yeah,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I know it's not a problem. I don't want to get jumping in position, but
I'm sorry. Sorry.
I'm
Ensuite
coming
bathroom, though. Don't give me the room without an ensuite.
Of course you'd be en suite.
Okay, good.
But we have noisy plumbing like any English country house. So
Oh, forget it. That's it. I'm not coming. Forget
yeah,
it.
and
I'm
we
going to
don't
stay in LA.
and we don't have a stand-up shower that you have to sit in the tub with the
I'm a tub girl. I'm a tub girl.
That's good. I don't like baths personally, but if you like a nice deep bath, we have all the lovely English
Okay.
bath salts and everything
Okay.
by the edge of the tub. And
I'll see you next week. It's not a problem for me. I've dropped everything to come. So I keep going back to this 14-year-old boy because I think he's magical and I'm so invested in him. And I think about all the charities you do. Of course, the Elton John AIDS Foundation, and you guys have raised, I think, over 600 million. I don't know if I have the right figure. It could be more.
The latest audited figures are 525 million, but the next time they're audited, we are significantly up from them. So yeah, I just have to officially say 525.
Okay, that is incredible. And I was also reading your HITS interview that you did for Pride, and I didn't. So the infection rate is going up, and you made the correlation between this cultural prejudice that is just seeping up everywhere against, LGBTQ and this homophobia, that it prevents people from getting their meds. It prevents people from seeing a doctor. That how can this be happening? It's just mind-boggling.
It's so depressing because it's othering people. And it's stigmatizing them and it's stigmatizing communities. And because of the history of HIV/AIDS, when it started as a gay disease that went on to infect 70 million people because we are all connected by our common humanity, there's still this hangover association that, it's a gay disease. And it still is disproportionately affecting LGBTQ plus people globally. And in America, you will fall off your chair when you hear the statistic, but 50% of gay Black men in America will contract HIV in their lifetime.
Oh my God.
Which is unbelievable considering the science is so good. We have antiretroviral medicines that prevent you from contracting AIDS if you're negative. And if you are HIV positive, you take 1 pill a day and it keeps your viral level so low that you do not go on to developing AIDS. So you don't get sick, you live a full life, and you don't pass the virus on to anybody else. So treatment is prevention. So we just need to get people tested and we need to get them on the medications, and there could be no new infections. And the trouble is when this heinous legislation gets put into places where it demonizes and it others people from diverse communities like the LGBTQ plus community, it stops people from, I don't want to have anything to do with the gay disease. I'm terrified of getting an AIDS test. I don't want to be seen picking up my medication regularly because you have to pick it up. You have to have 1 pill a day. And I certainly don't want to go out and talk about it because someone might think I'm, one of that group of people. And in parts of the world where, like Uganda, where it's now criminalized, they'll put you in jail or sentence you to death, which is barbaric and shocking. Who is ever going to go and get an AIDS test in Uganda? In fact, I know for a fact that the turnout rates at HIV clinics in Uganda now it's basically dropped through the floor. Nobody's going to get AIDS tests anymore because they're petrified.
Yeah, they're terrified.
The association, and it's so wrong. We must never ever make judgments. We're all linked by our common humanity. The Republicans, Ronald Reagan, that administration judged the gay community when HIV/AIDS first arrived. They just sort of said, "Oh, this is God's retribution for living an evil lifestyle," and they ignored the community. They turned their back on it, and HIV ended up becoming, and AIDS became the greatest disease, affecting our planet. We are all linked. We are all linked together. We are all God's children. We all deserve equal rights, dignity, respect, care, and love. And that legislation just makes my blood boil. Yeah.
Is that an email?
No, that's the clock over the mantelpiece.
Oh my God.
In the sitting room, which you and I can have a cup of tea in front of when you come over here next week.
Tuesday, that's when I'll be there.
Okay.
So don't leave town. So as a parent of a gay child, a couple of years ago, I never saw Angels of America on Broadway, but I
Oh,
watched it
wow.
on TV, Tony Kushner, and literally tears streaming down my face. Like I could barely watch it. The thought of my son going through that and the stigmatization of it, David, I couldn't get through it. The pain was so deep, and the prejudice around it, and still to this day, it's beyond my comprehension. But I mean, I can't explain it as a parent. Like it was just, I was just heartbroken.
It was
Heartbroken.
a horrendous time. It was like, people were being treated like lepers. They were fired from their jobs. They were thrown out of their homes. Insurance was canceled. And many families, just cut kids off. There were health professionals that, before they knew what they were dealing with, refused to treat them. Or they'd come into someone's room, gowned and gloved up and masked up in a way that, was horrifying. Thankfully we've moved on so far from then. And, the credit lies with the gay community itself when they kind of galvanized, and there were amazing heroes and a charity called Act Up, where they realized that nobody was going to help them, that they had to help themselves. And they pulled together and they really worked closely and put a lot of pressure on the pharmaceutical companies and the governments to make the initial advances that have led to the successful treatments that exist today. It is the power of a marginalized community pulling together and literally changing the path of health. And those medicines have gone on to save millions of lives. And I guess, if there's a lesson in all of that, it's like, no matter how downtrodden or, marginalized you feel, if you pull together with other like-minded people, it's amazing the things that you can achieve and the things that you can do. And Elton and I both feel a great sense of shame, because during the 80s, when it was so bad, I was terrified and still in the closet. I was too scared to come out at all. I thought I would die and I would be ostracized. And Elton was an addict, and he did the odd fundraiser. He did some singles. He did That's What Friends Are For with Dionne Warwick and Gladys Knight and Stevie Wonder. And he raised money, but he said, as a prominent gay man in the 80s, he looks at someone like oh my goodness, Larry Kramer, who wrote The Normal Heart, who was such an amazing, angry, outspoken voice and an advocate for change, out and said, I should have done more. And so we both, in the 90s, he set up the foundation, and then I started seeing him in 93. It's like, okay, here's the opportunity to make up for lost time, and to make a difference. And we will not stop until it's over. We will not stop until, and we think we can end it by 2030. The science is so good. If we can deal with these marginalized communities and get access to testing and treatment, break down some stigma barriers, affect some positive social change, we can stop new infections. It's optimistic, but we can't take our foot off the accelerator, and we won't.
No, and it's a collective. Talking about the collective, it was a Normal Heart, I think, that I saw.
Yes.
That killed me.
That's Larry's play. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a collective consciousness. And you did one of your quotes. I love one of your quotes. We've done so many good quotes, but one person will get there quicker, but many people will go farther. So it is a collective consciousness and being connected, because we're all connected. That quantum physics thing, that energy thing, we're all part of it.
That's an old African proverb, which I love, which was shared with me in the work I've done in Africa with the foundation. And I think of the great political divide in America right now, and it breaks my heart, because I as an AIDS activist, I look at the tremendous success of the PEPFAR program, which was started by George Bush Jr. and has been continued by every president, Republican and Democrat, over the last 20 years. And it is a phenomenal success. And it's been going for 20 years now, and it's being rolled over and continued again under the Biden administration. Thank goodness. It was continued and maintained under Trump before that, and Clinton and Obama, and everybody kept it going and kept the fight up. But Elton and I were in Johannesburg with a co-delegation of American senators to talk about, let's keep going. And Elton stood up and he said, this is the stuff that makes your country great. Like when you do actually pull together, when you do cross the aisle, when you do unite over a common, there's nothing you can't do. America is unstoppable. And it's just so bloody heartbreaking now to see this petty squabbling and this, obsessive focus on differences and othering people and this political extremism, which I don't believe in my heart reflects the majority of Americans, across the country. I think they are much kinder, compassionate, and more united people than the politicians that represent them and the media that, drive those divides and make money by perpetuating that gap, as opposed to, you and I grew up in a world where we went home every night and the entire world watched the same 6 o'clock news. It was news. It was 30 minutes of the same news, whether it was one network or the other, it was news. And now it's 24 hours of bullshit. And
it's entertainment. It's money making.
Yeah. And
that's all it is.
It's ripping society apart. And the people at the heart of it don't seem to have any sense of moral responsibility or decency in relation to, the divide and the discord that they're creating. And it makes me so angry.
Well, it comes down to the bottom factor is the dollar. It's actually all about entertainment. It's about making money, right? And about manipulating stories and targeting and algorithms. And it's so complicated and your brain could blow off. I mean, your head. And so, obviously what you're doing with your foundation is, grassroots, the most important thing you can do as a collective. That's really, first of all, it's an inside job. It's, loving yourself and all that stuff we spend decades trying to do. And then it's all about putting that out into the universe, one day at a time, one step at a time, like you said. I mean, that's the most important thing you can do, right? Yeah. Commit to that, because this other stuff is so large. It's so large.
I saw a speaker. He was a writer for the New York Times, and I can't remember his name, but we watched him. He spoke at an event in London, and we were talking about, God, it's just so, as you say, so large and so divided and so depressing. And he said to us, if you want to feel good about the world we live in, you have to stand on your head. He said, you have to look at the world from the bottom up. He said, the real success stories, the real, inspirational things that are happening in our world are happening down there. They're not happening up there.
They're grassroots.
Yeah,
there's
up there has become so screwed up, and it's become so political and divisive that if you're looking to that for inspiration, you're going to think the world is the worst place in the world. So he said you have to stand on your head and look at the world from that. And I try to do that every day. To just keep the hope and the perspective, that the world is actually a really beautiful, wonderful place. But this layer at the top is just,
it's like, if it wasn't so horrendous, it would be an SNL live skit. Honestly, if it wasn't, you'd laugh at it because it's so absurd.
Yeah. Or a National Lampoon movie.
Yeah, you can't even believe it. I watched news this morning, and by the way, Elton was on about the legislation, so I watched that. But I also watched some other things today that blew my mind. I'm like, how can this be happening? But I want to ask you, what is the beauty in aging for you?
It's a gradual process of accepting yourself and appreciating yourself. It has nothing to do with outer anything. It's just about feeling comfortable with yourself and kind of not giving a shit anymore. Like it's that thing that you and I felt so outraged about, when we were in our teens, where there was just this sense that you're not this and you're not that and you're not, and part of you just desperately sought that approval, and that validation. And the thing that's so great about aging is just, you don't care anymore.
You don't give a shit.
You don't give a
shit. I actually know shit now.
No.
And I call this part of life the curiosity landscape. So I feel like a 12-year-old. I'm up for learning and engaging. Anything. Here's what it's easier for me to say yes, but it's easier for me to say no. Right. So I am just like in this whole different area. I need to work on this, and I don't really care what you think for a change, which is kind of nice.
It is really empowering, and it's freeing. It's freedom to let that go. Don't lose your empathy, though. Don't
No,
don't don't
no,
don't yeah, don't
never.
lose being empathetic. That's the wrong version of that. Not
Yeah.
giving a shit means you don't care about anything or anybody. But it's just the not giving a shit what people think. Like
No,
letting
that's
yourself.
what I mean. Not giving a shit what people think. I want to clarify that. So I
Yeah.
have two more quick questions, and then I'm going to let you go do exciting stuff.
Thank you.
You're probably meeting Prince Charles for dinner. I have no idea.
King Charles. King Charles.
Oh, King Charles. I'm sorry. Okay, two questions. What would you tell that 14-year-old boy today if you had him beside you? What would you say to him?
I would say it's okay. Everything's going to be all right.
It turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
It turned out pretty good.
Yeah. But it's okay. Everything will be all right. Like I know that's pretty simple, but just that gentle reassurance, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I love that. I love that because you're being kind. So this is my last question. Again, thank you so much for talking to me today. And my friends wanted to ask me this question. Oh my God, I love it. It's been a hoot and a holla. Bob's your uncle. There's a Canadian expression. My friends made me ask this question because I would never normally ask it, but I'm going to ask it. So let's say you hadn't have met Elton, things didn't work out there. Like, was there ever a chance for you and I on some level? Like, could we have roommates, something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They all wanted to know.
I mean, you were one of those people that I genuinely loved and adored, and then life just took us off in different directions.
A little bit.
And then the most joyful thing, you've had a really amazing career, and the work that you've done with television and writing and the podcasting and your notoriety. That I read about your marriage and everything, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Mary Jo. Like I was just so excited, and then I went back on YouTube and I looked at your cooking shows and the stuff you did with Ken, and I did a lot of research and saw the great books that you'd written, and you helping people, and just that great wry, clever, fun sense of humor just like shone through, and the big heart. And so it was really like, and that's one of the good things about social media. Like it gave me a chance to, like, I think it was Facebook. I found you, added you, accept. Thank God.
I know.
I'm still looking for Bambi Linden. She's not on Facebook.
I'll find her.
Okay. I don't think she's on. But and just nice to reconnect. And then the pandemic, we didn't see each other for a while, and bibbity bobbity boo, we bumped into each other on Rodeo Drive, and here we are, your first male senior bitch.
And I think my only one, because I'm not going to be able to top this shit. This has been the most enjoyable time I've had with a man in a long time. But I'm so thrilled to have reconnected with you and to continue this lovely friendship and to see all the amazing work that you're doing, because your heart is as big and wonderful as it was when you were 14. And thank you for spending this hour with me. And I just wish you all the best in your next phase when Elton gets off the road.
And I'm making up the spare room. So Tuesday, I'll look forward to it.
You have to give me the address, so I need you text me.
I'll text you. Yeah, you'll have fresh flowers. Should we say goodbye? Should we say goodbye in a Canadian way?
Yeah. Okay.
Bye for now.
Okay, bye for now, eh? We'll connect later, all right?
Bye for now.